Hey, what is going on, guys? My name is ThePromG and welcome back to a brand new video. Now, what I'm bringing you guys today is my top 10 favorite anime of all time. Last week I brought you guys my top 10 favorite manga of all time, and that video just got an absolute insane amount of support, and a lot of you guys like that, so I decided to do my top 10 anime of all time in this video. Now, currently I do actually read a lot more manga than I do watch anime, and it really hasn't been like that in the past, but ever since I started really collecting seriously, I just kind of stopped watching as much anime as I usually did in the past. But that's not to say that I haven't watched some absolutely amazing anime series, so today I'm going to share my top 10 favorite anime of all time with you guys. And just like the last video, a few things to mention before we get into it. Number one, these are my opinions. You are free to disagree with me in the comments below if you want to, respectfully. This is not a top 10 best anime of all time. It's my top 10 personal favorite that I've watched. And again, there are a lot of anime that I just haven't watched, so just because your favorite isn't on this list doesn't mean that I necessarily hate it. I just probably haven't watched it yet. With those things out of the way, if you guys do enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more videos just like this. So yeah, without further ado, let's get right into it. So starting off the list at number 10, we have Megalo Box. So in the world of Megalo Box, obviously boxing is a very popular sport, but there's a key twist that is different from our world that we live in today. That being that all the boxers have these like exo suits on the back of them that really make their punches stronger and give them all sorts of different abilities. But the main character of the story is called Gearless Joe, meaning that he doesn't use one of these boxing gears. He just fights like a normal boxer would in our world. So Joe is an underground boxer, meaning that he doesn't fight in any of the big competitions, and he only really fights people in this underground gambling ring. But eventually Joe abandons this life of being an underground boxer, just doing gambling matches, and he actually decides to enter into a world competition. And he basically sets out to become the greatest boxer who came from the dirt, doesn't use gear like all the other boxers, and just tries to prove himself against these top-class competitors from around the world. So there are just so many things that I absolutely love about this series. Number one, the boxing action is absolutely amazing. You really get this intense feel during all of the matches. And on top of that, all the fights are pretty unpredictable, as you have this underdog, Gearless Joe, fighting against all these high-profile boxers, and sometimes he wins, and sometimes he gets the shit kicked out of him. And there's also a lot of drama outside of the ring with his training and the people he associates with. Also, the atmosphere of this anime is super duper cool. It kind of reminds me of Cowboy Bebop. I think a lot of people can agree on that one. Not only is the art style similar, but the main character, Joe, is also just super chill, and he kind of gives off the same vibes that Spike would give off, except just a boxer. And a lot of the other professional boxers actually do have these fleshed out backgrounds that are very interesting, so it's not just Joe carrying the series. The antagonist and just the people he faces are also super interesting. So if you're looking for an awesome action-packed series with lots of amazing characters and fights, then definitely recommend you go check out Megalo Box. Coming in at number 9, we have Konosuba. Konosuba is probably the first ever isekai anime that I watched after I actually knew what an isekai was, and this is probably one of the best you can find. Even if you're not into the isekai genre, I think Konosuba is one that a lot of people can still enjoy, because it's a bit unconventional and different in the way that the characters act. Konosuba follows our main character Kazuma, who is this shut-in NEET in the real world, and basically one day he's trying to save this girl who's about to get hit by a truck, or so he thinks, and he ends up dying in basically the lamest way possible. So before he's about to pass over to the afterlife, he's actually given a choice by this goddess named Aqua, who gives him the choice to go to this other world and start over, taking one thing with him. But Kazuma finds a loophole and actually chooses the goddess Aqua to take with him into this new world. So Kazuma and Aqua are transported to this isekai world where it's basically like an RPG video game, but Kazuma has really low stats and Aqua is pretty useless in combat herself, so they have to find a crew in order to do these quests to obtain enough money to survive in this isekai world. They don't find the most useful crew members to join their squad, but let's just say that all these characters are absolutely amazing and memorable, whether they're useful or not in actual combat. And that's the main thing I really love about Konosuba is the characters. Kazuma, who's your isekai protagonist, he's not your typical one, he's actually very rude to the females that are in his group. He's always calling Aqua useless, he's always belittling his teammates for their shortcomings, and, just being super stingy. And, Kazuma's also all about gender equality, so he has that going for him. But he's not an unlikable character, he just seems like a normal person and how they would react in this situation with having this useless team of people when he's just trying to survive and have enough money. You also have the main girls who are in this squad. You have Aqua, the goddess, Megaman, who can only use one explosion attack and then she just kind of passes out for the rest of the day. And then Darkness, who is a masochist who loves to get hit and be this human shield basically, but cannot hit a single target with her sword. All these characters just provide for an absolutely amazing, hilarious series, and one of the funniest anime that I've ever watched, period. So if you've ever been turned off of the isekai genre for one reason or another, I definitely recommend you give Konosuba a shot because it's absolutely hilarious and definitely worth your watch. So coming in at the number 8 spot, we have Terror in Resonance. Out of all the anime on this list, Terror Resonance is probably the most realistic out of the bunch, and while I do obviously like my fantasy series, I think that Terror Resonance really resonated with me, no pun intended, just because it was based in reality and it was super easy to get immersed into. So basically Terror Resonance follows these two teenagers who are from this orphanage for like special kids, and it's not really explained in the beginning, but you learn more and more as the anime continues. And while their motives aren't revealed until the very end, these two teenagers try to carry out all these terrorist acts in the city of Tokyo. But they do it in a couple of very interesting ways. Number one, they ensure that nobody is hurt, so if they're blowing up a building, they'll make sure that everybody gets out of the building and evacuates before they blow it up. And the second thing they do is that they put on these masks and they basically go on YouTube and the internet and they upload a video giving a clue about where the next place they'll hit is. And basically on the other side of the story, there's this lone wolf detective who's an ex-cop, and he basically wants to solve the mysteries and get to the places before they get blown up. And in this series, there's just so much suspense and mystery going on. You never really know what's going to happen, and also wondering if they're going to mess up along the way or if this lone wolf detective is going to end up catching them and foiling the whole thing. Not to mention how amazing this anime looks. I'll play a little bit of the beginning opening scene, but it just absolutely took my breath away. I forget when this anime came out, I think maybe 2014, but it just looks so amazing for its time. Being an 11 episode anime, this is one that I just absolutely could not get enough of. I binged this to the very end, and let's just say that the ending of this anime left me absolutely speechless. I was just sitting there in the dark, looking at the blank screen, just like dumbfounded. You have a little bit of time on your hands looking for something amazing to watch, I definitely recommend Terror in Resonance. So coming in at number 7 on my top 10 anime of all time list, we have Haikyuu. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with this series. It's just absolutely exploded in popularity and become one of the most popular sports anime of all time. If you're not familiar with Haikyuu, it's basically about the main character, Hinata, who is this super short, redheaded kid who just really wants to play volleyball. One day he's passing by this shop and he sees on TV this kid named the Little Giant who's playing at this volleyball national championship, and ever since he sees that, he wants to be just like him, so he's just set on competing and playing volleyball from this moment on. Now one day, I believe in middle school, he's playing this kind of practice match against this other team, and the setter on this team is named Kageyama, and he's just an absolute asshole when it comes to volleyball. He's super rude to his teammates, he has a massive ego, and he really doesn't know how to be a team player at all. So Hinata and Kageyama get into it, and eventually, when they get to high school, they find out they're actually going to be on the same team. Now in the past, their high school team has had a huge fall from grace as being one of the top teams to being one that's basically unknown and kind of lives in the shadow of its past. But with the addition of Hinata, who has this amazing no-look shot, and Kageyama, who is this genius setter, they prove that they can be a lot better of a team than they were in the past. And I think that most people agree with me that what really carries Haikyuu is not just the volleyball, but also the characters. You really do feel this bond growing with the team as you do watch the anime. You know, every time they win, you feel like you win, and every time they experience defeat, you really feel like you lost along with them. Each character has a super unique personality, and some are really likable right off the bat, and some kind of take a bit to grow on you, or as they develop, they get a lot more likable. And I must say that the volleyball aspect of this anime is done super well. The matches are super intense, and it really does give you a good idea of the rules of volleyball. Going in, I didn't know anything about it, but now I feel like I know a little bit about the sport. This anime is just super entertaining to watch, and one of the only anime that I've ever really binged. Once you get started, you just won't want to stop, and man, this is definitely a hell of a ride of an anime. I definitely recommend checking it out if you haven't already. So coming in at number 6, we have... Yeah, I'm not doing that again. Coming in at number 6, we have One Punch Man. Now, if you watch my top 10 favorite manga video of all time, then you know that One Punch Man is one of my favorite series. I believe it was at number 4, and I think that the anime is a very faithful adaptation to the manga, so needless to say, I enjoy it a lot. Obviously, One Punch Man being about Saitama, who's this dude who's here for fun, and he just can't find someone who's good enough to really challenge him, so he's looking for opponents to meet him in skill. Basically, everything I like about this anime is everything I liked about the manga, which I already talked about. You know, the side cast really does carry the series. All the heroes like King, Bang, Genos, all these different characters who are super unique again, just really do carry this series in my opinion. If the anime just focused on Saitama, who's this already super OP hero, you know, it'd get pretty boring pretty fast, but not only do they mix it up with Saitama himself, the side characters do provide for more of the most interesting and meaty parts of the anime. I must confess, I actually have not watched season 2 of this anime. A lot of people say that it's just not as good as season 1 was, or it's not as good as part 2 of the manga. So I'm really only speaking about season 1 here, but it looks amazing. The comedy is just absolutely on point. The characters, again, are spectacular. And again, this is just a super enjoyable anime, one that I'm sure a lot of you guys, most of you guys have probably already seen, but for some reason you haven't watched One Punch Man, either watched the anime or read the manga, I highly recommend you go watch it. And as soon as you get started watching it, you just won't want to stop. It'll fly right by. So coming in at the number 5 spot, we have JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Now, as the title states, this is one bizarre series, and one that's absolutely skyrocketed in popularity. throughout these past couple of years. I mean, this has become, you know, a series that not a lot of people even watched when it came out in the 90s, to being one of the most popular mainstream anime that exists today. So if you've been living under a rock, you don't know what JoJo's is, basically follows Jonathan Joestar at the very beginning. It shows the lineage of everyone in the Joestar family as they go on their own kind of bizarre adventure. In the first season, it's like fighting vampires. The second, it's like these Egyptian pillar men. And in the third season, it's stands. I don't even know how to really describe stands. It's just super unique and bizarre. I'm sure a lot of you guys are already acquainted with the series, so I'll just leave it at that. And again, I must confess that I actually haven't watched anything past the third season. I know it's a sin. I haven't watched the fourth to the, I don't even know what part we're on now, 7 or 8. Like I said in the beginning, I just don't watch as much anime as I used to back in the day when I was watching JoJo's. I just dropped it, and I really haven't gotten back around to it, so this is a series that I definitely need to get back into. From what I watch, this is one of my favorite series of all time, especially the second and third parts. The characters are some of the most unique that I've ever seen in anime, as well as the fighting style. It's super well thought out and really unique as well. And the story in general is just super engaging, so if you haven't checked out JoJo's in one way or another, I highly recommend it, even though I'm kind of not one to talk because I haven't watched past the third season, but, you know, from what I've seen, it's just an absolutely amazing anime, and one that has my highest recommendation. Alright, so coming in at the number 4 spot, we have an anime that I wasn't quite sure I was going to enjoy right at the beginning, but as soon as I started watching, I was just instantly hooked, that being Prison School. Prison School is about these 5 boys who go to an all-girls school who recently became co-ed, and they think that as soon as they go to the school, they're just going to have a harem of girls just flocking to them, but as they quickly find out, that is not the case. So one night they devise this plan to go peep on the girls with this very elaborate ruse, like with a cell phone on a string to record them. But as you would expect, the plan goes horribly wrong, and all of the boys are caught and forced to go into the school's prison. Basically, instead of getting expelled, they have the choice to go to this prison where they have to be on good behavior and do all sorts of manual labor for a certain amount of time before they can go back to being a normal student. And from here, they just get into all sorts of different shenanigans with the girls who are administrating them, and there's definitely some interesting plot stuff that goes on in this anime. This anime is just absolutely over-the-top ecchi, over-the-top sexual, super over-the-top when it comes to fan service, and while I'm not one that really likes that a whole lot when it comes to anime and manga, this series is definitely the exception because what it has in fan service, it also matches in just comedy. I feel like I've been saying this a lot in this video, but every single character has such a unique and over-the-top personality that's just absolutely hilarious. My favorite would probably have to be Gakudo, who's like this really nerdy kid with long hair, and he collects like these figures and stuff. And the way he talks, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like super proper and nerdy. It's just absolutely hilarious. And I will say, this is probably one of the only anime that I would ever actually recommend watching with the dub. The dub voice acting is one of the reasons why this anime is just so funny and why the comedy works, because the voice actors are all super talented when it comes to embodying these characters' personas in the voice. There's so many scenes from this anime that I reference when I just talking to my friends casually, you know, and we absolutely lose it when we think of them. If you're looking for an anime that's a little bit risque, but very, very funny, I highly recommend you go check out the dub for Prison School. Alright, boys and girls, so we're into my top 3 favorite anime of all time, and starting a list off very, very strong is an anime that I talk about a lot, that being Code Geass. Code Geass is this classic anime that I believe came out in like 2008, but I actually only recently watched, I believe, like 2 years ago, and it instantly became one of my favorite of all time. So in the world of Code Geass, the country of Japan, I believe, was actually taken over by Britannia, which is like this European country. Basically, Japan and all of its residents are stripped of their national identity, and let's just say that there's some mismanagement when it comes to the country from Britannia. So our main character is Lelouch, and he's this absolutely genius prodigy student who's actually born into royalty, and his father is the Emperor of Britannia. So you may be thinking, wow, he's born into royalty, must have just this absolutely amazing life, but that's not the case. There's actually an assassination on his mother, which actually also left his sister blind and crippled. And Lelouch blames his father, the Emperor, so his main goal is to overthrow the government basically and kill his father. And I won't get into it because it's very complicated, but one day he actually finds this girl named Cece who comes out of this ball thing, and he actually bestows this power upon him called the Geass. Basically what it allows him to do is take control of someone's mind and make them do anything that he asks. Needless to say, this is an absolutely OP ability that's super interesting and really plays a huge role in him overthrowing the government. The other part of this anime that I really enjoyed is the mech element. All the battles in this anime are fought with these mechs, whether it be the army or Lelouch and his rogue squad as they try to overthrow the government. You know, the mech design is just super memorable. You have this one that can melt things with one hand, has like this claw on it. You also have the Lancelot, which is piloted by Suzuka, which is Lelouch's childhood friend who actually does work for the government. And it's just this state-of-the-art, it's super fast, has this shield that can deflect stuff and all these other sorts of abilities. And yeah, the mech fights in this anime are just top-notch, and one of the reasons why I really love this anime. Another reason why I really like this anime is just because Lelouch is such a badass. I mean, not only is he smart, but this power of the Geass that he bestows is just so cool. I wish I could use it. Also, a fun fact, I believe that Lelouch is the #1 character on Mal as far as favorites, like by a landslide, over 100,000 I think. But yeah, the story is pretty intricate and complicated at times, you know, with all the interworkings of Britannia and the government, and you know, who's on whose side. There's also a lot of tragedy, betrayal, and all sorts of drama that really make this anime interesting. So if you're looking for an action-packed, drama-filled GOAT tier anime, I highly recommend you check out Code Geass. So coming in at number 2, we have an absolutely perfect anime in my opinion, that being Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. Now this anime isn't #1 on my list, it's a close second, but I do believe that this anime is objectively perfect. I was racking my brain before this video trying to think of anything that I didn't like about this series, and I really just could not think of anything. I think that every single element of this show is just done to absolute perfection. I'm actually interested, leave in the comments below if there's anything you disliked about Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. Not the original, but Brotherhood. I think that's just such a good series, and I really want to see what you guys think is wrong with the series. But that being said, FMA is about these two brothers, Edward and Alphonse, and they try to do this ritual of alchemy to bring their dead mother back, but ends up going horribly wrong, where Edward loses an arm and his leg, and Alphonse loses his entire body. So Edward does a blood seal and puts him into this suit of armor. And basically the Elric brothers go out looking for the Philosopher's Stone, which is this legendary item that'll help them get their bodies back. And obviously it's just not that simple, but the anime does a really good job at portraying this journey of the two brothers throughout the whole anime. Obviously there are a lot of hardships that they face, whether it be all these formidable foes such as Scar or any of these 7 deadly sins. And throughout this entire anime you really get to see the bond between these two brothers that just feels so real and natural. But besides the two brothers, there's so many amazing characters such as Hawkeye, Mustang. Also some of the sins such as Wrath, Envy are just super cool, and they provide for a really entertaining story. I really don't know what else to say about FMA. I mean, everything about it is just absolutely amazing. I'm sure a lot of you guys have already watched it. If you haven't watched FMA yet for one reason or another, I highly recommend you go check it out. Just an amazing journey and one of the best anime that I've ever experienced, hands down. So before we get into the #1 spot, I'm going to give 2 honorable mentions that just didn't quite make the list for one reason or another, but that I do enjoy a lot. So the first honorable mention is going to be Days. Now Days is a soccer anime, kind of similar to Haikyuu as far as the story goes. Basically follows this kid who wants to play soccer, but he's not very good at it. All he really knows how to do is run. Now, they incorporate this aspect of running into their playstyle as a team, and he gets closer and closer with these teammates that he bonds with. Every character on the team is super likable, and they really do form this bond, kind of like with Haikyuu, with the main character, and they really grow as a team, just fostering him and mentoring him to become a better player. So while the main character isn't this prodigy of a soccer player, like some of his teammates, you know, he does improve, and every time he succeeds, you just know how far he's come and how hard he had to work to obtain that victory. If you enjoyed Haikyuu, or you really want to get into a new sports anime, I highly recommend Days. And the second honorable mention is Attack on Titan. Now the only reason this isn't on the top 10 list is because I've only actually watched the first 2 seasons of this. I watched the first one in middle school and then the second one very recently, so I've yet to get to the completed series as it is right now. But let's just say that once I complete this series or get caught up to date on it, I have a feeling that it will go pretty high up on my top 10 list. Alright, so the moment you've all been waiting for, my #1 spot of my favorite anime of all time. And if you know me well, you know that this one is going to have to go to Hunter x Hunter. I should also mention that I'm going to be talking about the 2011 adaptation, not the one from the 90s. The 90s one is good for its own reasons, but I feel that the 2011 version is just the best way to experience the series. Hunter x Hunter starts off as this seemingly pretty simple journey about this boy Gon who's trying to find his deadbeat father, and his father was this legendary hunter, so he decides to enter the hunter exam to get his license, and basically gives him all these different perks that allow him to travel across the world looking for his father. But as he starts off going through the hunter exam, he meets all these different characters such as Killua, his best friend, Hisoka, Leorio, and Kurapika. And after the hunter exams, finding his father kind of takes a backseat for Gon as he's faced with all these different other obstacles such as the Phantom Troop, going into a video game and living there trying to survive in Greed Island, as well as basically trying to stop the world from ending in the Chimera Ant arc. The show is just so diverse, and I think that every single arc is absolutely amazing. A lot of people will give certain arcs flack, such as the Hunter Exam arc, the Greed Island arc, which I mean, I can understand for certain reasons, but I think that when you look at the big picture, just the amount of stuff that this anime does and tries, all does it pretty well. I mean, when it comes together, this is an absolute masterpiece of an anime. And I would say that the Chimera Ant arc in this anime is one of the best arcs in all of anime, period. Just the characters that are introduced, the storytelling, and just how it's executed in general are super masterful, and it really does leave you with your jaw on the floor by the end of it. And you compare the darker themes of the Chimera Ant arc to the beginning, where it's just this kid with his fishing pole trying to find his father. I mean, it's really night and day. It really does go to show the character development and growth that Gon experiences. But aside from the story, the characters are another reason why I absolutely adore Hunter x Hunter. All of the main cast is just super lovable, and seeing the bond between Killua and Gon especially is just super cute, and as well as Kurapika and Leorio as they do their own kind of separate things at certain parts, but in the end they're all friends, and it's just super amazing to watch them all bond and go on this journey to save the world, doing all sorts of different crazy things. And I will say that Hunter x Hunter is probably not the best anime if you're looking for, just hardcore shonen fights, just one after another, because the series actually doesn't have a lot of fights, but when there are fights, they're just super, super memorable, such as Gon and Hisoka. You have the Krollo fight, you have Netero versus Miriam, so many of these amazing fights. And because this anime focuses more on rising action than it does individual fights, it really does make you appreciate all these amazing fights a lot more than if there was a fight, every few episodes. I could go on and on about all the reasons why I love Hunter x Hunter. We'd be here all day. It could probably be its own hour video by itself. But I'm going to stop talking about Hunter x Hunter now. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend it. It's just an absolutely amazing journey. Everything about it, I think, is just absolutely spectacular. But yeah, that's wrap up this video of my top 10 favorite anime of all time. If you guys did enjoy it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more manga videos just like this. So yeah, this has been ThePromG. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. And as always, hope to catch you in the next one.